Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the sixth edition of the Jungle Show on all Auburn Daily platforms: Auburn Daily YouTube, Auburn Daily Facebook, and Auburn Daily the Twitch stream. On today's episode, we will discuss and break down Auburn senior forward Jaylin Williams, and we will also go through my article that broke down Jaylin Williams on auburndaily.com. All that and more next on the Jungle Show. Well, hello again, everybody. We are back for just like I said in the intro, the sixth episode, the sixth edition of the Jungle Show. This has been a blessing. This has been great. I've been, blessed enough to do this. This has been fun, and we're going to keep doing it as we continue the Auburn player breakdown series this week. Our second one. Last week we did Auburn super senior guard Zeb Jasper. This week we will do Auburn senior forward Jaylin Williams, and we are. Look, I'm pumped to talk about Jaylin Williams. I don't know about you, but I'm super excited for this one.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to talk about a young man that is an Auburn man. He could have very easily left school in the transfer portal last year when Jabari came in. He wasn't going to get that starting job, but he didn't. He stuck around. He helped the team. And now, as Bruce said at the end of the NCAA tournament, it's time to build around this kid.
That's right.
You and I have often referred to him as the Swiss Army knife. So we'll talk about that as we get more into the show. But I'm excited to talk about Jaylin and how much fun he is to watch.
Absolutely. And Jaylin has a chance to be that type of guy on this year's basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into Jaylin talk, we will go through my article that was posted on auburndaily.com. We will go through that article here in a little bit. But before we go and get into that, you mentioned Jabari. You talked about how Jaylin could have gone to the transfer portal, of course, but he chose not to. He chose to stay and play behind Jabari coming off the bench, which was a very important role. But being able to take that role. But you mentioned Jabari. Let's talk a little bit about some of the draft guys. The draft is June 23rd.
Okay.
The NBA Combine has started, but the more higher end guy, the more higher projected guys are not there yet. They will be there this upcoming week, like Jabari and Walker, and those two will be there. You're seeing a lot of mock drafts coming out right about now, where it's like, okay, where do you see Jabari? What kind of a lot of people have them going number one to the Orlando Magic. A lot of people could see them taking Chet or Paolo and him falling number two to Oklahoma City. I think Oklahoma City would love that, or even falling number three to Houston. I think Houston is drooling over the opportunity to get Jabari Smith, but it all depends on what Orlando does at one. What do you think they're going to do?
See, I think, and you wrote the article before the lottery had happened on the draft prospects. At that point, I thought his best option was probably Houston. I just didn't want him going to Detroit. I still so if I'm Orlando, if I'm Pat, I forget his last name, he's the general manager down there. If I'm sitting there and I go, okay, Pat Williams. If I'm sitting down there and I go, okay, I've got the number one overall pick. The last time I had the number one overall pick, we got a guy named Shaq, I believe. And this time, do I draft Chet, the string bean, who maybe he's got some upside if he could put on some weight. But I've got a tall, skinny center in Mo Bamba.
That's right.
So I don't think I need Chet. So in my mind, it's between Paolo and Jabari. And I think Jabari is more skilled than Paolo. And really, you've got Chuma playing that Paolo position played it pretty well. So, in my opinion, and yes, orange and blue sunglasses, I take Jabari there. But if he slips to number 2, it's like you said. I think the general manager at Oklahoma City would do a backflip if he could get Jabari at number 2. And my goodness, if he falls to 3rd, I think he'd fit in awesome at Houston. Yeah. I think the question becomes: does anybody trade? Does Pat go, okay, I've got a center, I got a guy like Chuma, I've got some guys that play that type of position. Maybe I can get 3 draft picks or 4 draft picks this year and give up my number 1 slot.
It is rare to see a team do that. I haven't done the research, but I don't even know if that has happened. A team trading the number 1 overall pick, and I don't know what it would take. I don't know what Orlando would want, and I expect 3 other picks and maybe another
a lot
player.
Yeah,
I would want a ton for the number 1 pick, absolutely, because then you can get whoever you want. But we'll talk about those guys, and we'll also see about where Walker goes, and we'll see these guys draft.
Love to see Walker. Love to see Walker go to the Bucks.
Ooh.
I really would like to see him go to the Bucks.
I wrote that down in my article, the 5 best scenarios for Walker Kessler, and I agree. I think he would fit great playing off that bench role, coming behind Brook Lopez, playing with guys with like Giannis and Drew Holiday, who you give Drew Holiday that, you allow Holiday to become more aggressive defensively on the perimeter, just like Kessler allows,
just like our guys,
Steph, KD,
absolutely.
And Wendell.
Absolutely.
So, but outside of those guys, we still have one more guy in the draft currently right now, and Alan Flanigan is currently in the draft. He has not come back to, or said he is coming back to Auburn yet. He does have that chance, does have that opportunity. He was not invited to the NBA Combine, but he did go to the G League Elite camp where he, played pretty well.
Played pretty well. I thought he won
9 points in one game and 11 points in another, and hit a nice step back 3 that caught some eye. And he's getting good, talk about
exposure.
Him, but it's not draftable type of talk, and that's where I think he's got to come back. But we will know this time next week if he is in the draft or not, because
June 1st, right?
June 1st. That's right.
Okay.
So
good. I think he had a good camp. I think he did a lot of good things for himself. And maybe made some NBA executives take a little notice of him. But if he stays in the draft, he's not going to get drafted. He's just not. And at that point, you would have to go either G League or overseas. And I think he'd get a lot more exposure playing at Auburn Arena in the SEC schedule than he would ever going to the G League. So I think it'd be silly. But again, what do you know? Kids will make up their own mind and kind of do what they think's right for them. So that's fine.
Absolutely. But enough of that. Let's talk about the main guy here. We are here to talk about in this 6th edition of the Jungle Show. And wow, it's been 6 weeks that we've been doing that. It just seems kind of crazy. It still seems like we're going 1 week, but I don't know. Well, yikes. But this is the second time we're continuing this Auburn basketball player preview series, where I write an article every single week that goes up before the show on each player. And we put that article on auburndaily.com, and we do it for each player coming back next year. And we're breaking them down. Last week, of course, we did Zep. This week, Jaylin Williams. I am super ready to see this kid play. I think, just like Bruce said, and I mentioned it in the article, just like Bruce said in the post-game presser of the Miami loss. Next year will be built around Jaylin. And I can't wait to see how he does that.
And Jaylin played fantastic in that game. He's one of the only guys that really had a good game against Miami, knocking down threes, posting up, doing all sorts of things. And I'm just going to let everybody know, sometimes things happen, and the guy's here to mow my grass. So there'll be a lawnmower in the background for a little bit. So just so you don't wonder what that noise is.
Wonderful. I'm in a very busy area of Auburn, so if you hear
about
that,
right, isn't it?
That's right. That's just how it is, especially in the summer. But
yeah.
let's talk about Jaylin Williams. Let's go through this article first, and we can kind of just talk about it as we go. Jaylin, again, fourth year entering. He's entering his fourth year, coming back as a senior. This will be his fourth different role, completely different role. His freshman year, he was on the bench for the very beginning of the year, and we heard about him. We knew he was playing well in practice, and then he was given that opportunity against Tennessee at home late in the season.
Yes,
and he threw an
alley-oop
to himself, and then he made a three, and then he started like dribbling the ball up the court by himself, and it was like, okay, that's not where has he been, but he was then given that role, and then got cut short due to COVID.
Yeah,
and then his sophomore year, I think, and a lot of people will disagree with me and say it's Alan Flanigan. I think Jaylin Williams was our best player that year. If you're talking about every single game, and I know Sharif, was unbelievable. I know JT was good, and that other guy that went to Tennessee that's no longer at Tennessee, the little guard. I can't say his name on this program, but
no, you cannot.
He was good at times, but Jaylin was the most consistent player on all around and every single thing on that team. So I think he wins MVP of that year, starting the entire year, but then has the number 5 or 6 player in the class, and freshman phenom Jabari Smith come in, and he's get put on the bench roll. And not only is he put on a bench roll, he's put about his minutes go from about 23 a game to about 10 a game.
Yeah,
and a lot of that can be depleting if you're a college athlete, especially 20, 21 years old,
especially nowadays with the transfer portal.
Of course, his opportunities that he could have had
stayed is unbelievable. Yeah,
absolutely,
true Auburn man.
He did. He stayed, and he was extremely important in so many different games. So we'll talk about some of those games that he had. But Jaylin, look.
So he's taking
on this role. Yeah,
we call him the Swiss Army knife. It's like you were saying, he does different roles. Can he score? Yes. In high school, he was scoring 40 and 50 in a game.
Yeah.
He can score from the perimeter. He's a 3-level scorer. He can score from the perimeter. He can score mid-range. He can go to the bucket.
That's right.
So that's a really big deal in offense. But the thing that always impresses me the most about Jaylin is his passing ability. So he's got some real high basketball IQ, because he makes passes that you go, that dude's 6'8" making that. Wow, that's a nice pass. And he can defend probably 2 through 5, maybe not, maybe 3 through 5, but he could stay with a 2 guard for a little bit. And his length would bother the guards. So he's a plus on the defense. He's a plus passing the ball, and he's definitely a plus scoring the ball. So
absolutely,
he fits. Look, the Swiss Army knife. They do it all. You and I talked to his mom on a former show, Chantel, and she's a great lady, great follow on Twitter. So she was just saying that how much she appreciated the fact that he enjoyed being at Auburn and wanted to stay at Auburn then. This was last year. So she's a great follow. But Jaylin is that Swiss Army knife that we're going to need desperately. We've got guys who can hopefully shoot better, Wendell and KD. But Jabari was our leading 3-point shooter, and I think Jaylin can come close to being that as well.
I agree. I think, just like you said, Jaylin, the Swiss Army knife of Auburn basketball. I think, and I noted this in the article, I think Jaylin is the most I did this article in parts. The biggest strength I wrote is his versatility. I said Williams is one of the most versatile players that Bruce Pearl has ever gotten to come to Auburn. And if you think about that, like, whoa, like that's a big statement right there. Who else? Who else can shoot the way that Jaylin can pass the way that Jaylin can, has the basketball IQ that Jaylin does, can defend 2 through 5, has Jaylen's length and size and quickness and lateral movement.
The only guy that comes that is the guy that was started ahead of him this year.
Yeah,
is Jabari.
Yeah,
and other than that, Chuma was getting there. I would like to have seen Chuma stay another year, although when he got drafted, I was like, well, never mind. 16th is pretty dang good. So Chuma's close to that. The Anthony's wasn't there because you got to think bigs really, because Jaylen's 6'8".
Yeah.
So you're comparing him to guys that are big, and I don't know that there's a more versatile guy. He reminds me a lot of the guy that Bruce had at Tennessee that plays for the Sixers now.
Tobias Harris.
That's who he reminds me of.
That's a very good comparison. I like that one a lot. So I said, when talking about his versatility in the article, I said, his offensive ability, he can score. He's got a good 3-point shot that's gotten better and better over time at his time at Auburn. But his post ability, because he gets post up against these fives, these bigger but slower fives, he can make moves on them, just like Jabari did, just like Chuma did. He just quicker than them. So his ability to do that, but also defensively, that's fine. We get a switch on Jaylin. There's no mismatch when Jaylen's out there, and they're trying. You can't get a mismatch on Jaylin Williams. I don't think there's a one right now or a point guard that would be that I would be like, no, do not guard him. I trust Jaylin on the floor guarding anybody he wants. I also noted, just like we talked about earlier, Williams is a very good passer. A
really good passer.
It's kind of like weird how good of a passer he is. But it's very easy to tell when you watch Jaylin play that his basketball IQ is extremely high. He just knows where people are going to be before they are. And he knows where he needs to be to put those guys in that position or to put himself in a good position.
He made some passes the past year or so that you and I both were kind of like, where did that come from? How did he make that pass? What? I don't even understand how that got to where it went to. But yeah, he is a guy that can make his teammates better, which is a skill that not everybody has. He obviously is not a ball hog. He took a back seat this past year, so he's the type of guy that is team first, and he's been in Bruce Pearl's system now 4 years. You don't find college athletes that have been in a college system for 4 years that really can play.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just like that. I also noted in the article, and you can read all this on auburndaily.com. It was published yesterday. But Williams is also a very good ball handler, and sometimes I don't want to say he goes out of control, because I think any guy at his size looks out of control, but he is out of control enough to where he knows to control, if that makes any sense at all. He looks like he's out of control, but he's not.
It falls back to basketball IQ. It looks like he may be going too fast, but he can.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows where people are, and I agree. That I had a comment that Chantel raised a great young man, and even greater basketball player.
Absolutely, Michael Floyd, love that man right there.
I agree.
I love it.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. But so in the article, I also am writing like what they need to improve on, if there is anything. And there's not a lot that I would say, Jaylin, okay, you need to be better at this for next year to be that type of all SEC type of forward. There really isn't. But if there's one thing, it's that consistency. His sophomore year, he was one of the most consistent players on the team. We saw extreme inconsistency from the guards, of course, with guys like Allen being out of position or, whatever. but Jaylin was that guy that was consistent every time. And I think he kind of like when he took that back seat to Jabari, he wasn't given the opportunity to be consistent as much as he was. But that's going to be the case for every single guy we list on this one.
think consistency is.
So I'm going to have to find other things to work with the other guys, but I can't find.
So let me throw something out there. Let me throw something out there about Jaylin. And again, it's hard to find places that I'm sure Bruce and Steven and the coaches have plenty of areas where he can improve. Yeah. Obviously, he can become a better shooter, but he's a good shooter. What I'd like to see, and maybe this isn't the type of a guy Jaylin is he seems real quiet on the floor. I really, he's a fourth-year senior. He's been there and been in the system 4 years. It's his basketball team.
100%.
Him and from last week, Zep is their baskall team.
I agree.
They need to lead the team. Yep. They need to be the vocal guys on the floor. Yeah. And I don't know that I haven't seen it, but I don't remember thinking, wow, Jaylin just ripped somebody for being in the wrong spot. Yeah. Sometimes you got to. And he may be that in practice. It's not something that we don't get to see practice all the time, but I'd like to see him be more of the vocal, hey, I'm it. I'm the big dog. Y'all gonna follow me. Let's go. And let's go and hopefully he'll get there in that regard.
No doubt. So I also am doing this for every single article. Their best moment from this past year, the best moment from 2021. And I know Auburn fans are going to struggle to relive these two games. Oh, not really one of them, but the other one will struggle to relive. I think Jaylin's best moment were the two NCAA tournament games. And you mentioned them earlier before we started going through the article. And I was like, dang, he must have already read the article, which he did. But I said, just like I said in the article, I said most Auburn fans don't want to remember and relive the struggles from the NCAA tournament in where was it? Charleston, I think.
Greenville,
that's right. I knew it was in South Carolina. However, those were Jaylin's best games. He combined for 20 points in those two games, went 4 or 5 from 3 in those two games. But he was our only player, especially in Miami. And I think it was, Walker just banging his elbow on Jaylin, knocking his teeth out in the Jacksonville State game. Jaylin was playing great in the Jacksonville State game and then had to come out after only like 6 minutes of play. But he was the only guy against Miami that we could rely on for a bucket.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. He was playing great against Jacksonville State, and the inadvertent friendly fire of Walker Kessler's big old elbow broke his front tooth, and he had to leave that game. And then so everybody was like, I wonder if Jaylin will play because it's 2 days away. Yeah. And he came back and was really good against Miami. He couldn't miss from outside. He was versatile on the defensive end. We were struggling to guard their guards. He helped out in that regard. So I think that those are the two games that I would remember from him this year. It's like you said, it's kind of sad that one of them was the end of the season, but by golly, he got Bruce Pearl's attention.
No kidding.
Bruce Pearl opened his presser basically after the Miami game and said, hey, we're going to build around that guy. And and I think he has. I think he's put some pieces in there that Jaylin can be successful with. And like I said, hopefully he'll step up and be one of the seniors that goes, hey, we're going that way, and y'all need to get behind him. Let's go.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Yeah, just like, and we'll move this into the next heading that I would say. Those two games that Jaylin played, those 24 combined minutes against Jacksonville State, because he only played 6 minutes against Jacksonville State, played 18 against Miami, and scored those 20 points. That's the building block. That's the momentum he needed to go badly. He needed to be that guy in 2022. And the next heading is expectations for 2022, this next upcoming season. And the heading that I wrote is team leader. And I don't mean, he leads us in points. And of course, I think that is as much of a possibility as anything. I don't want him not saying rebounds or assists. I want him to be the team leader. I want him to be that vocal guy on the court. I want us to build around Jaylin. And I'm going to read Bruce Pearl's quote. This is from the Miami presser. We had just lost by 19 to Miami as a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. And this is what Bruce Pearl says. I expect Jaylin to have a dominant role next year, and he's ready. He took one for the team this year. He competed with Jabari, but Jabari was the best player on the floor every single night.
That's right.
And Bruce is exactly right.
That's right.
Talk about competing with the best. They competing with the number 1 overall pick.
We hope.
Jaylin, yeah. Okay. Well, Orlando, don't screw that up.
Yeah.
Jaylin has to be that guy next year.
A lot of expectations on him. I'm also interested to see. I think he is strong enough. His emotional intelligence to be the guy that can handle high expectations. It's hard when you come back and you're kind of the man, and your coach has said, "Hey, you're going to be the man."
Yeah.
Those are some expectations on you that some guys shrink from. I don't think Jaylin will shrink from them. I think he will step up to them, and we'll see. We'll see how that as we get into the season here in 150 days or something like that.
That's right.
We'll see how he does step up to those expectations, and I think he will.
That's right. I agree. I noted in the article, towards the end of the article, here's what I said. I said, Williams has a chance to have one of the best years of his career at the most important and relied on role in 2022. Williams has a bunch of pieces already coming back and already around him, with newcomers as well. I would expect us to build around him and build through him for this upcoming season. And we're super excited and super pumped to watch Jaylin compete at his highest level, and truly think he could be an all-SEC type of forward.
Jaylin could be all-SEC. I think he could get drafted, and maybe not first-round type of guy or early, like a lottery type of guy. But the lot can be said for wanting a guy with character on your team. I said this last week about Zep. Zep's going to go out into your community and wear your gear and make everybody go, "Hey, I want to be around that team." Yeah. I think Jaylin's the same type of guy. I would love to see him go to the Hawks so he could play at home, by the way.
Man, I know his mama would love that.
Yes, Chantel would get a kick out of that, I think.
Absolutely. So with all this talk about Jaylin, and I want to just wrap up, before we end the show, I want to ask this one question. With all this talk about Jaylin and building around him and building through him for this upcoming basketball season, Auburn has one scholarship spot left with the loss of guys like Jabari Walker, and that scholarship spot is assuming that Allen comes back. If Allen doesn't come back, we have 2 scholarship spots left. Do we use that last scholarship spot? And before you answer, I will add, it does not seem very important or needed from Bruce Pearl when he was asked that question. He said, "Are you going to use your last one?" Well, we like the guys we have right now. Of course, we're open to all that, but we're open to going to the transfer portal or getting a freshman. But
I think when we missed out on Julian Phillips, I think that he had created that roster spot for Julian Phillips.
Yeah,
we didn't get Julian. I think that if a sharpshooter got into the portal, a guy that is a red-hot three-point shooter type of guy, I think Bruce would go after him. Barring that, I don't think we use it. And a lot of guys, look, there's a lot of guys in the draft right now and not a lot of slots going to get drafted. So there's guys going to come back into college basketball, and a lot of them will hit the transfer portal. I think once this June 1st date rolls around, I think we'll see a lot more guys in the transfer portal. But I don't think Bruce uses that spot. I think he can be really selective. And I'm talking about a 45% type of 3-point shooter. Go find somebody that can shoot it lights out.
Yeah.
And if you find them and they'll come, great.
Yeah.
If they're not out there, or if it's a not a good fit, then you go, I'm good with my 12.
Yeah, I like my guys.
So
let's build it through Jaylin.
That's kind of what I think he'll do. Yeah. But Bruce may surprise us and find a 5-star kid that's laying around not doing anything. I don't know.
Well, you never know with a guy like Bruce.
Yeah.
But we'll wrap up the show there. Of course, we will know a lot more this time next week. So if in the next 4 or 5 days, if Alan Flanigan says he is coming back, the next week's episode and next week's article will be on Alan Flanigan.
Yeah.
If not, then I'm going to go pick a junior.
Okay.
And we're going to start for the juniors. It will probably be KD Johnson. I do not know 100% sure yet. I'm super excited to write about KD Johnson.
KD.
I mean,
he just had a birthday this past week, by the way. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, KD. But I expect Allen to come back. I expect, especially with Wes coming back to Auburn.
One more year with his daddy.
I agree. I think he'll be that guy. So I think next week's show and next week's article will be breaking down Alan Flanigan. But we'll let y'all know. Our Twitters are right here, right there, at Gray Oldenburg or at War Eagle Hoops. You can find us on Twitter. You can find all the awesome stuff going on at auburndaily.com, all the articles, all the baseball coverage, struggles for the baseball team, but, all the baseball coverage, all the football upcoming coverage, all that on auburndaily.com. Love those guys.
I saw that it is literally, I think yesterday was the 100 days till football kicks off. And they got 2 night games to start the season. At least it won't be so hot.
That's true, but then they put Penn State
in the middle of the day. Sorry, Penn State, you
won't experience a real night atmosphere.
No, but you're going to be hot.
Yeah, we'll enjoy that heat, Penn State, but that is not about basketball. That's fine, but good thing Auburn basketball is indoors. How about that?
Yes,
but we will
same temperature all the time.
That's right. We will see y'all next week for the 7th edition of the Jungle Show. Super excited, super pumped to keep on doing this. And War Eagle, everybody.
War Eagle, everybody.